Honorable Mayor Schoenheider.
Here.
Alderman Waldeck.
Here.
Alderman Beidler.
Here.
Alderman Moore.
Here.
Alderman Pandeleon.
Here.
Alderman Tack.
Here.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Here.
Alderman Edelman.
Here.
Alderman Moreno.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Biddy, very much. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. First item on the agenda this evening is comments by mayor, and I have just one. And I am very disappointed and pleased tonight. I'm disappointed to announce that next meeting, May 4th, will be Alderman Moore's final meeting here on the council. We'll have an opportunity to send him off appropriately at that time. But I'm also very happy to announce that longtime resident and tremendously longtime community volunteer, Tim Newman, has accepted my offer to come and replace David on the council, and he will do so beginning on the May 4th meeting. So Tim's actually here this evening. Congratulations. It's going to be great to have you. Thank you. And that completes my comments. Next item on the agenda, comments by City Manager Bob Kyler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. What I'm really pleased about is that you weren't honest with Tim before he accepted your offer.
That comes later.
Okay.
That comes later.
That's right. You didn't scare him off. Well, it is my pleasure this evening to bring forward to the City Council and the community a wonderful event for now the second time in Lake Forest. Remember back in 2013 when the Conway Golf Club and BMW Western Golf Association came before the City Council asking to hold a championship tournament at Conway Farms Golf Course. That I think our challenge at that time was that we said, well, if we're going to do this, we want to do the best golf tournament possible, and put that out there for both the staff, the Conway Farms staff, the Western Golf Association staff, and as the council knows, we pulled it off because that year we were named the best event on tour that year. So what do? You bring it back in 2 years and try and outdo yourself. And this evening, it's my honor to and privilege to present to you Vince Pellegrino from the Western Golf Association that's going to talk about the 2015 event that's coming up in September. But I think more importantly, we wanted to spend a little time reminding everybody of why this golf tournament is, and the purpose of the golf tournament and what it tries to accomplish. So Vince, if you would mind coming forward, please.
Thank you, Bob. It's certainly my pleasure to be here tonight and talk a little bit about the 2015 BMW Championship. As Bob mentioned, we're extremely excited with the Western Golf Association to host this championship in Lake Forest and at Conway Farms Golf Club. We had a tremendous experience in 2013, and it's nice to be back to a venue for the second time to make that experience even better for the city and for all the visitors that are going to come to Lake Forest that second week in September. So I thought, although I can't promise that this will be more exciting than financial planning, I do have some information I'd like to share with you all, and to show a short video that recaps 2013 and gets everybody excited for the championship this year.
Oh, whippy, yippee. I love this stuff.
Well, we're certainly pleased with the 2013 As Bob mentioned, we did receive the PGA Tour Tournament of the Year awards, voted on by our peers across 30-plus events on the PGA Tour. But great to be back, and the planning has been going on for several months now, and working with Bob and the staff here in the city to make the experience better for the entire community and for the spectators who will be here September 14th to the 20th. So it's a week later than normal. We have a week off in between the playoff events that start in New York, ultimately go to Boston, and then a week off and come to Lake Forest here. We talked a little bit last time about the highlights from 13, but Jim Furyk shoots a 59 on Friday. Hunter Mahan getting a hole-in-one on Saturday. And as a result, BMW donating $100,000 to the Evan Scholars Foundation on his behalf. And really the city of Lake Forest getting recognized on a worldwide stage all week. Great to be back this year. Top 70 players in the world will be attending. Players like Jordan Spieth, who won at Augusta, Jim Furyk, who just won last week, will be here. Rory McIlroy, Phil Mickelson, the usual suspects, and Lake Forest's Conway Farm Zone, Luke Donald, we hope gets to the championship this year. We took a year off from being in Chicago, and we had a great championship last year in Denver, and look forward to another banner year in 15. But as I mentioned, there's been tremendous planning going on this year. Conway Farms has done an incredible job with not only renovating their golf course, but some of the infrastructure in and around the facility, renovated greens, practice facility, clubhouse, pro shop, and really taking into consideration not only the membership, but in consideration the tournament as well, to make it a better experience for the spectators on the golf course. A couple things that are new this year. Ticket price, we introduced the tickets earlier last year in September at the same price as we had in 2013. Kids, once again, will get in free for the championship. We like to promote junior golf at the tournament. Military will receive free tickets to the championship in what's called our Patriots Outpost, which is a hospitality venue on the golf course. And different from 2013, we're going to have date-specific tickets, whereas in the past we had daily tickets for the championship. So we'll have to pick the day that you'd like to attend the championship. But we want to put a focus on some initial awareness for Lake Forest, and working with the city, Susan, to make sure that happens this year, not only on a national broadcast, but something locally as well for the people who are coming to Lake Forest. The tee times for this year's championship, a couple different changes that I think will help out with congestion in the community. Thursday, Friday, our tee times start later, 11:30 each day approximately, which we feel will help out with the congestion in and around the Conway Farms Golf Club. Again, I mentioned city and community meetings. The city has been so supportive of working with us, Lake County officials, to plan for the championship, and all working together to make sure that we put on another spectacular event this September. Volunteers, we couldn't do this championship without the over 1,700 volunteers that we have for the tournament. 900 have registered. We're getting a lot of volunteers from the community, and we're excited about that. But that's the reason that we're able to donate the dollars that we do to charity, because of the people who volunteer their time and energy for the championship. A couple things locally for the community. We've worked with the city to make sure that our entrance parcel of the tournament is kept clean, that we're not going to stage any equipment on that entrance parcel, and make sure that we're cognizant of the neighbors and the neighborhood in this year. Some changes as well by parking and transportation. We are still going to utilize Granger, but only for about a quarter to a third of the spots that we used Granger parking area on in Mattawa this year's championship, and moving a large portion of all the public parking to work with the city of Waukegan to Fountain Square, the old Fountain Square Mall property. up north. So we feel that's going to help with the congestion, parking, and traffic in the neighborhoods as well. And then also creating a second entrance for the tournament. So a lot of things we learned in 13, and I would say it's great to be back to take that feedback that we learned from not only our corporate hospitality patrons, but also the general spectators in the community to make it a better championship. The corporate support has been tremendous. The ticket sales have been wonderful for this year's championship. And the reason we do all this, and Bob touched on it a little bit earlier, is to all the proceeds of the BMW Championship benefit the Evan Scholars Foundation. And so we're going to have one champion, but we're going to have 870 caddies that win too. So all proceeds are going to benefit the Evan Scholars Foundation. I received the Evan Scholarship myself. I caddied at Riverside Golf Club, attended Indiana University, and an alumni of the program. So it's close to my heart, and we're excited about raising significant dollars this year as a result. We have a couple new Evan Scholars with us tonight that we thought we'd have come up and say a few words. They just received the scholarship, and there's two of them from the area. I'd like them to come up, introduce themselves, and say a little bit about where they caddied, where they went to high school, where they're going to go to college on the Evan Scholarship, and then ultimately talk a little bit about themselves and what their career plans are. So I'm going to have Trevor Martinez and Sean Casey come on up and say a few words.
Hi, I'm Trevor Martinez. I go to Lake Forest High School, and I caddy from Old Elm Club in Highland Park. I'm going to the University of Illinois, where I plan to study accounting, and from that, hopefully move into the field of accounting. I just have to say, being able to host a BMW Championship in Lake Forest is a huge honor, not just as a person who enjoys golf, but something that's being able to benefit my future education. I have great pride that my city is able to host that and help support my future. So I really appreciate all of you guys allowing the BMW Championship to be here, and I can't be more grateful for everything you've done for us. So thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Sean Casey and I'm currently a senior at Lake Forest High School. I began caddying at the Knollwood Club my 8th grade year with one goal in mind, and that was to send myself to college. And this past winter I achieved that goal and will be on the Evans Scholarship to the University of Wisconsin-Madison to hopefully study real estate. Golf and caddying has been a huge part of my life, and it's played a huge role in the person that I've grown up to be. And the fundraising that the BMW Championship does for the Evan Scholar Foundation enables kids like Trevor and I to receive a college experience and hopefully set us on the right path to achieve our future goals later on in life. So I couldn't be happier that the tournament is coming back to Lake Forest, and as a fan and as an Evan Scholar, I'd like to thank you for hosting such a great tournament and just supporting such a great scholarship program. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. We reached my milestone this past September where we've sent over 10,000 kids since 1930 to school on a full tuition and housing scholarship. And our tuition bill is about $13 million each year, and as many of you know, that's not going down anytime soon. So we'd like to reach 1,000 caddies by 2020. So that's our goal. And right now we have 28 alumni living in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff area. We have 3 current scholars from the area, and Conway Farms alone, who's just been so supportive of this championship, and Western Golf and Evan Scholars Foundation, has 17 alumni, 2 currently in school, and 2 new awards outside of these 2 gentlemen with us today that we're awarding to school in the fall. So we're excited about our partnership with Conway Farms, and actually we have, besides myself, we have alumni with us here today, and if it would be okay if they would just stand up and introduce themselves and where they went to school and maybe what they're doing. I know they're residents here locally, so if that's okay, we'll just start off with Mr. Roger Moore.
Roger Moore. I received an Evans Scholarship in 1949, which kind of dates me. I caddied at the Milwaukee Country Club and attended Marquette University, and I was the first Evans Scholar to graduate from Marquette, which now has a chapter house with about 60 students in it. And I want to add one footnote to what Vince said. This is the second largest scholarship program in the country that provides full tuition and housing to the recipients. So it's a big deal, and it's made possible by funding from events like the BMW Championship and, of course, a lot of donations from the outside.
Good evening. My name is Frank Pasquesi. I'm a resident here of Lake Forest as well. I caddied in Highland Park and attended Northwestern University, and I'm an attorney practicing at a firm. Actually, Roger tells me stories that he actually caddied for one of our founding partners back a long, long time ago up in Milwaukee, so it's kind of neat to see the whole evolution of how it's come around. But really wonderful program, of course, and can't thank the city enough for supporting hosting it again, so thank you.
Mark Pasquesi. I caddied at Northmore Country Club in Highland Park, like my brother Frank, and also followed in his footsteps and got the Evans Scholarship to Northwestern University. And so the Evans Scholarship is amazing in the opportunity it provides kids that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to get an education and at some of these universities that otherwise wouldn't be available to them. So the BMW Championship is obviously the largest fundraising event for the organizations. So thank you all for hosting this event, and I look forward to attending it. Thanks.
My name is Tim Newman. I think I'm still Tim Newman. I grew up downstate in Decatur, Illinois, and attended Purdue University, graduated there in 1976, and the Evans Scholarship was a life-altering experience for me. I just can't say enough. If I would invite all of you at some point to look into the life of Charles Chick Evans. He was just an amazing individual. He and Bobby Jones were the only two individuals to win the U.S. Open and the U.S. Amateur in the same year, both considered majors at the time. So he was just an amazing individual who started this foundation alongside of his mother, and look what it's grown to today. It's just a phenomenal organization. So I'm forever grateful to the Evans Scholars for the opportunity they afforded me. Thank you.
I think that's all we have in the audience today. Thanks again for the support. We're looking forward to September, and certainly we appreciate, on behalf of Conway Farms and Todd Morse, the general manager and Western Golf Association, we appreciate everything that Lake Forest has done for Western Golf and the BMW Championship. So thanks again for your support.
Thank you, Vince.
Yes, thank you very much for coming. Thanks very much for coming and certainly sharing some great stories. I know both these young men that have been awarded the Evans Scholarship, and they're both well-deserving kids, so they'll be great additions to your group. I'd like to read a resolution of support regarding the Conway Farms Golf Club hosting the 2015 BMW Championship. Whereas the Conway Farms Golf Club was designed by famed golf course architect Tom Fazio and opened for play on August 1991 as a Scottish links-style golf course. And whereas the PGA Tour has selected Conway Farms Golf Club as the site of its 2015 BMW Championship, the third of 4 events in the PGA Tour playoffs for the FedEx Cup, which include the top 70 golfers in the world. And whereas the 2013 BMW Championship was a success when held at Conway Farms Golf Club in 2013 and named Tournament of the Year by the PGA. And whereas the BMW Golf Tournament raises critical funds for the Western Golf Association's Chick Evans Caddy Scholarship Program, which since 1930 has granted over 9,600 men and women at 14 universities around the country, including room, board, and tuition, making it one of the country's largest privately funded scholarship programs. And whereas the City of Lake Forest supports the staging of this premier golf tournament at the Conway Farms Golf Club and is prepared to assist the Western Golf Association and Conway Farms Golf Club in handling the necessary public safety and other ancillary operational services associated with the hosting of a professional golf event. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Lake Forest, Lake County, Illinois, and the Mayor and the City Council do hereby proclaim the week of September 14 through September 20th, 2015 as BMW Championship Golf Tournament Week, and urge all citizens to support the event and the charitable contributions made by the tournament to the Chick Evans Scholarship Program. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimously approved. Again, Vince, welcome back and congratulations. We look forward to seeing you in September. Bob?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor, members of the council. The second item I have this evening is you're probably wondering what this black spaceship-looking contraption is in the front here. Well, to answer that question, Ms. Yu Koppel is here to talk about the Green Minds presentation and what that means for Lake Forest. So, Ms. Koppel?
I'm bringing David Beckman as well.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Council, for having us this evening. Green Minds Lake Forest, Lake Bluff is a group of Lake Forest and Lake Bluff citizens, neighbors, and friends that came together to share our concerns about a variety of environmental issues, such as recycling and the use of pesticides and herbicides in our parks, our schools, and in our homes. Green Minds launched almost 18 months ago and has grown to over 60 all-volunteer members and is now a 501c3 entity. Through monthly meetings and our Facebook page, we focused on educating ourselves and our communities with a focus on collaborating with the City of Lake Forest, the Village of Lake Bluff, and with community institutions such as Lake Forest College. Green Minds is open to those living, working, or studying in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. Our vision is to bring awareness to current environmental issues and to encourage educated, sustainable practices. With this, I'd like to especially emphasize educated. Green Minds aims to promote smart, environmentally and financially sound ideas. Green Minds has worked towards these ideas in several ways in which you will explain.
We have a lot of ideas, but we can't obviously do everything. So we started with doing some workshops. The first workshop we had was 2 workshops last week on pesticides versus natural lawn care. One of them was hosted by Lake Forest College, and Professor Adelson was very gracious to host us and doing opening remarks and incorporated in his curriculum. We had the second one at Lake Bluff Library, and the mayor of Lake Bluff did attend there. We're having, in a couple of weeks, we have 2 workshops on compost at home with Marian Cartwright, who is one of the co-founders of the Oliver Gardens. She's going to teach the residents how to compost and we're doing this together with the City of Lake Forest as a collaboration. The City of Lake Forest have taken home these earth machines that we hope to be able to sell to the residents, because we do have a problem with all the stuff we all send to the landfills. It costs us a lot of money, it's a lot of resources, and it's a huge CO2 contributor. So what we're hoping is if we can get every household to start composting, we can save a lot of money. And Dan and his department, they were calculating on how much we can save just with a couple of 100 households. And it's a substantial amount of money. So what we're hoping is teach people. It's easy to compost. It's much easier than going to buy the mulch afterwards, and you don't have to drag out your trash to the curbside or to your garage, and you get beautiful compost and you save money for the city. So that's one thing we do in collaboration with the City of Lake Forest. We have another workshop coming up on easy recycling that takes place in May in Lake Bluff, and we do that together with Swalco, and that is very much only geared towards Lake Bluff residents, because they have the same problem in Lake Bluff as we have in Lake Forest, with that a lot of people either don't recycle because they find it too complicated, there's too many things to remember, or they have to drag their recycling too far away from their house. So what we're trying to do is to teach people how to recycle, both so they recycle more, because it costs us less to recycle than to send to the landfill, but also to recycle correct so we don't ruin, for instance, as Michael Thomas told us, if somebody pours a cup of coffee into a whole bag of cardboard, we ruin all the cardboard for the recycling, and then it's going to cost us money again. So we're trying to make the residents of Lake Bluff aware of this, and we will work on similar projects with Lake Forest. We also started a petition for the reduction of pesticides in our community. Pesticides is a huge issue, and there's a lot of pros and cons. There's a lot of parents and grandparents and dog owners who are very worried, very, very worried over the health effects for our children and our dogs, but it also do affect our environment in general. So we're not asking again for a complete ban. We're asking, let's look at what we're doing. Is it really necessary? We can save a lot of money, not just in the chemical, but also the staff that applies these chemicals. And if they get sick, workers' compensation and so forth, which is going to cost us a lot of money. And it is known that a lot of these workers who apply the pesticides, they more often tend to contract cancers than regular office workers or regular school teachers. So it is something that is very interesting. We have over 200 signatures, so we had that by New Year, and we're still starting to collect signatures again on this issue. We also have started a used shoe drive in Lake Forest that we are running right now. It's just after a couple of weeks. On Friday, we took our first load of shoes to Swalco, and in that load, in 2.5 weeks, we collected 98 pairs of shoes plus 5 lonely shoes. That is actually 2 car loads full of shoes that we saved from the landfills. These shoes are going to be either repurposed, and the ones that they can't repurpose, they're going to be disassembled, and the rubber is going to be recycled and remade into new products that we can use instead of sending it to the landfills and costing us money. It's small steps, but it's things we feel is necessary that we all start being aware of. We have a recycle presentation we're working on. It's an old presentation that the City of Lake Forest has made, and we are working with them now to help update it, and we're going to try and make an educational program with games, interactive, to teach people how to recycle properly. We like to be in constant dialogue with the different municipalities, and we would like, for instance, we have asked Chuck Myers for more recycling receptacles. He has agreed within his budget, and we will do we continue to do other efforts where we go and request things, and we sometimes may be a little bit annoying or irritating, but we do think that it's really, really important that these issues are being addressed, because there's a lot of money, and sometimes it really does make sense to do the environmentally right thing. So we do feel that if you would start incorporating our thoughts and would listen to us and work with us, we could actually shape the future rather than letting the future shape us. The one example is that in France, several cities, they have a huge issue because they've run out of landfill space. So now trash costs more than ever, and they don't know what to do with it. We want to prevent that we get to that space, that step, to that specific point. It's better to fix it now rather than when it's too late and it's going to really cost us money, and we're going to have a smelly city. We don't want that. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
I do. Can you tell us the website where you publish some of these activities? You mentioned the recycling. There were 2 coming up in May, so if you could just tell us where your website is, it will have more detailed information on the dates and times and locations.
We actually are very fortunate that the City of Lake Forest are very helpful. So Susan Banks we'll post them on the City of Lake Forest website. And we also actually do need to thank Michael Thomas, Chuck Myers, Susan Banks, Dan Martin, Brian. And there's a lot of people in the City of Lake Forest who are really working hard towards these things behind the scenes, and they really have the right intentions.
Is the shoe drive ongoing, and is that on the city's website
Yes,
as well?
and they're being collected throughout next week at Kittles and Lake Forest Lake Forest College's Athletic Center.
Thank you.
And we can continue it or do it again if it's a success.
Thank you for coming, and I will say I am one of these recent converts to both recycling, which I probably shouldn't admit, but also composting, and it's really so rewarding. I mean, my goal each week is to actually fill my recycle bin. I know that's ridiculous, but you know, it just, I'm so much more conscious of it than I used to be, and my husband gets a little crazy every now and then. I'll see him sneaking something into someone, and I yank it out, and so on. And we keep a bin on our kitchen counter. You can, I think I got it at Bed Bath & Beyond or something for all the recycled stuff, so that I can keep it there. It's got a nice filter in it, so I don't have to take it out as I use it. I take it out once a day and put it in the compost, and then you make the most wonderful compost, and it's pure, and it's yours, and it's really very exciting. So I can't recommend this enough. It's wonderful fun, and it also serves the environment well. So you get kind of a nice double whammy.
It serves our
Thank
city
you.
well.
Great for us to be nudged. Great for us to learn. I don't have anything quite as otherworldly than that. I just have a bin, but I know I have more to learn, and I look forward to learning from you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Mike Edelman, for inviting us.
Oh, our pleasure to have you.
You can also find us on Facebook. Green Minds, Lake Forest, Lake Bluff.
And Mike or Dan, do you want to come forward and talk about the machine and how we might be distributing or making those available to residents? I don't know.
Thank you.
Sure. There will be, the earth machines are for sale through the city for $55. And we're going to be bringing more out in the next dialogue, but we're also get something on the webpage where we want to encourage, just like the recycling carts, if a resident calls in and wants one, we can go ahead and arrange to have it delivered to their house. So we want to promote this home composting as much as possible, because it does divert from the landfills, and we think that we're out all the time doing the carts and whatnot. We can deliver those. So
Comes with instructions?
Comes with instructions. They're pretty straightforward. Just really no meats or bones, or it's just pretty much the waste that you get from vegetables, and as they mentioned, Marion will be teaching a class at Elua coming up on May 4th, I believe, to be able to give a workshop if you really want to become expert right away. But yeah, so they're totally going to be offered through the city at $55 a piece. So,
do we need a building permit to put one of those in the backyard?
Is that an accessory structure? Right? Setbacks and all.
Doesn't have a foundation, so I think we're okay.
Hey, Dan, before you go, I would make the recommendation too that we donate a pair of tennis shoes to the effort, and they can be found on the telephone wire at Deer Path and McKinley.
Very interesting.
ComEd has been notified of this
right.
pair of
Okay.
shoes that are on the high wire. So.
Thank
Dan,
you.
Marion corrected those dates. Marion, it was the 3rd and the 5th, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. It's on the city website, good.
Thank you very much.
They can nest them. I can get 3 of those in my Prius. They turn inside out and they nest on Russian nesting dolls.
That's
They're easy to carry home.
You can get as many as you want, Alderman. Just let us know. 2 other very quick items. Number 1, in front of you is a copy of a document that's called What You Need to Know About Living in Lake Forest. I think the City Council recalls that we participate with Lake Forest College in the Founders Council. This is something that Susan Banks and her counterpart at Lake Forest College have put together to help both students and renters and neighbors of homes that are rented to college students to understand what the rules and regulations are. We will be mailing out a copy of this to all the surrounding property owners, and the college actually printed these on their own printing presses and so forth, so we can get these out. And I think this was a really good first step of the Founders Council. I think this is going to be a helpful document for our residents going down the road, so we wanted to make sure you had a copy of that. And then lastly, you have a copy in front of you of the press release on the Electric Aggregation Consortium and moving away from MC Squared to Integris. And a lot of people in town today received a letter from ComEd. If you haven't been home yet, it's probably in your mailbox and you'll see it. And it raised, I think, a lot of questions as to people wondering why we're going away from MC Squared to ComEd. Well, actually, we're eventually moving to Integris. The problem is that we needed a temporary holding place, if you will, because Integris was the low bidder. But our concern was until just now, April 15th, we didn't know what the ComEd rate was going to be. And we didn't want to lock in a rate with Integris that may be higher than ComEd. If we had actually stayed with MC Squared, that would have been higher than the current ComEd rate. But the Integris rate is less than that. So we will be transitioning residents eventually to Integris, but I think we made a commitment years ago that we would never be in a position where they were paying more than they would have if they had stayed with ComEd. So this is just a temporary transition period, but we will be eventually moving everybody there. Again, once that pricing is in place, that we're confident that residents continue to save money through the consortium and are not paying a higher rate. So if you have any, or if any residents contact you, they have questions, they can certainly call City Hall and we can help them. They really don't have to do anything at this point, just sort of hold tight, because eventually when we move to Integris, again, they won't have to do anything. It will just happen seamlessly, much like when we first went to MC Squared.
Bob, who should they call? I've already had one call on this today.
They should just call here at City Hall and they can ask for either Susan or myself or or Matt Havlick, the intern. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. And that concludes my report this evening.
Thanks, Bob. Just one sidelight to the Lake Forest College item. And I'm really proud of the progress we made with the Founders Council and the things we're doing to kind of increase communication and involvement with on both sides with the city and with the college. And actually Thursday evening, Bob, Chief Held, and I are going to be joining some administration from the college as well as leaders of student government at the college for kind of a, call it a town hall. Just an opportunity to get engaged, answer questions, talk about what it's like to be a part of Lake Forest and how we can work more closely together with the college and the student body as well as the community. So I'm excited about that. I'm grateful to President Scott and his leadership there at the college for continuing to push that effort forward. So thank you. Next item on the agenda, comments by council members. Finance Committee, consideration of an ordinance making a supplemental appropriation for the fiscal year beginning May 1, 2014, ending April 30, 2015, first reading, and if desired by the City Council, final approval, presented by Alderman George Pandeleon and Elizabeth Hall, Finance Director.
And as you can see, I will do very little talking about this, although it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, we weren't able to cover this during the Finance Committee agenda, but this is a year-end administrative item. It relates to expenses that were approved by the City Council throughout the year that were not budgeted or anticipated when the appropriation ordinance was approved in July. So it necessitates at the end of the year a supplemental appropriation ordinance to ensure that the city's spending is within legal appropriation. The three items this year relate to the emergency, one supplemental appropriation in the emergency telephone fund is related to the conversion to consolidated dispatch with the Village of Glenview, which necessitated capital improvements in FY15 that were planned for FY16. So it was just a timing issue. The second is related to the Laurel and Western Avenue TIF fund. That is a new fund. As a result of the TIF district being approved by the City Council in January, we have some expenses anticipated this year related to the TIF, which necessitate about it necessitates $1.9 million in supplemental appropriations. And the last is a $400,000 supplemental appropriation in the Water and Sewer Capital Improvement Fund related to the intake project, which was in the capital improvement plan for FY16, but Public Works came and got City Council approval to advance that to FY15.
Questions for Elizabeth? Michael?
I do, and being on the PPL committee, I'm surprised I have to ask this, but can you explain the 1.9 million for the TIF?
Yes, it's the budget did not anticipate the TIF because it wasn't approved yet. Now that it's approved, we do have we have the Jackson property acquisition, which is a large, and then the beginning of the environmental remediation. We may not spend all the 1.9 million, but that was the estimate at the time that was put in the budget estimates for
Okay, I got it.
FY15.
Thank you.
And these are both TIF eligible expenses, so these will be reimbursed
Through increment,
once
yes.
the TIF bonds are issued.
And part of this came about as a result of the fact that we delayed the bond issue to the summer, which will be FY16, so we don't have the bond proceeds in FY15 to fund them.
Any other questions? Anyone from the public care to comment on this particular item? If not, I'd ask for a motion, and if determined to be appropriate by the council, waive first reading and grant final approval of the ordinance making a supplemental appropriation for the fiscal year beginning May 1, 2014 and ending April 30, 2015 for consolidated dispatch implementation, the newly created TIF fund in advance of the water plant intake project. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Waldeck.
Aye.
Alderman Beidler.
Aye.
Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Pandeleon.
Aye.
Alderman Tack.
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Edelman.
Aye.
Alderman Moreno.
Aye.
8 yeas, 0 nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Betty, very much. Any other comments by council members?
I have one.
Alderman Moore?
Yeah, I just wanted to, regarding the electrical aggregation, I just wanted to say that even though it's over and we've done it, I had reservations and I think regrets not going with the more green energy election as the default in light of the fact that we're talking about recycling and composting and have such a kind of a focus in this community on the natural and the environmentally friendly part. And I hope that when the council considers it next time, they go the other way.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, next item on the agenda, opportunity for citizens to address the city council on non-agenda items. I have one request. Mr. Mattoon. Please come up and identify yourself and state your address, please.
Hi, David Mattoon, 1547 North Sheridan Road in Lake Forest. City of Lake Forest, with a quarter of the funding from the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation, has restored the 1857 plat, and that's going to be installed back here in the City Hall tomorrow. And on Thursday, Art Miller and I are giving a talk about that, the significance of the plat, changes in the streets from the plat to now. And so that'll be at 7 o'clock in City Chambers here on Thursday. And you can register that at the Lake Forest Lake Bluff Historical Society website.
Will there be prints available of that? Or just one?
Not from the Historical Society, but I've donated. I'm going to donate prints to the city, to the Preservation Foundation, to the Historical Society, and to the college. So there'll be, you can publicly look at those.
But not for residents to buy?
Well, there has been no discussion of that. I mean, that's something we can. I mean,
why not?
This could be a moneymaker for you.
Right.
There was a discussion whether the Historical Society wanted to do that, and they decided not to do that. The other part I'm
I
going
think
to talk...
actually, I would like to
Sure.
not move on. I think that'd be a great idea.
Okay.
David's idea. I mean, I think that would be a really good moneymaker for you guys, for whomever wanted to, take the project on.
Okay, well, we'll have to figure out who wants to pay for it. I mean, who wants to support it. Okay. And the other thing I want to talk about is railroad safety, and I want to thank Lake Forest for putting up this sign. This is Illinois Railroad Safety Week. Last year, you see all the different laws, how many warnings and citations have been cited, and that's all across Illinois. There's no scheduled blitz for East Lake Forest, but Union Pacific is going to add some in August. Apparently, Governor Rauter is not a big fan of golf because Illinois Rail Safety Week is the same week as the golf tournament here. And Metro will be doing a separate one on West Lake Forest on Tuesday, September 9th. Whoops. So I'd like to invite the city council to participate, probably not in Safety Week as much, but in the other ones. Karina, the late Karina, professionally, said you needed a notice 4 months ahead of time, so this is a 5 month notice. And it starts at 5:30, so you could go, if you work downtown, you could work part of the time and then go to work late. And Norm Carlson asked for the city council for a resolution for Operation Lifesavers, Principles of Education, Engineering, Enforcement. And so I was wondering what has been done for that. That was 6 months ago in October.
Yeah, only the mayor can do resolutions.
Right. Thank you, David.
Okay.
We'll take a look into it for sure.
I'm going to throw
Okay.
Karina under the bus,
Yeah.
and she's not here to protect her, but we'll
Right.
find out and get back to you.
Okay, well, I was going to say
Yeah.
you could do it during Illinois Safety Week, but you might want to do it at when we're at West Lake Forest. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I think I might argue with you and say that the governor might be a fan of golf, because I also believe there are quite a few people that will attend the tournament, will take mass transit and take the
Okay.
train up from the city. So,
Okay.
and we're encouraging them to do that.
Okay,
So,
fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would just like to add, if I may, that I have had the benefit of watching a video that David has had made available. I saw it with Karina, and I would recommend it to everyone. I mean, rail safety is one of those things that it's just too easy to become nonchalant and complacent, and it's really a very dangerous place to be around the railroad tracks, and being aware and staying aware regardless of how many times you cross is important.
Well, that specific video I can't show because they've changed the laws of the rules of Operation Lifesaver. Sort of, it has to be the same presentation nationally, but I could certainly give the national presentation if there's any interest. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Paul Hammond, 511 Beverly. My executive summary regarding the Laurel Avenue project. There are 6 major parts to this puzzle, and at the end I'm proposing a solution. The first part addresses the potential risk associated with issuing TIF bonds. A little history. The Barrett College developer went bankrupt. The Regents Road developer went bankrupt. Renowned Lake Forest developer Robert Kendler went bankrupt with the ponds development. So Focus Development Limited Liability Corporation ends up in bankruptcy court like many other Lake Forest developers. Then the potential tax revenue would evaporate for the TIF bonds, and the risk for the city becomes the repayment of the $31 million for the TIF bonds. The second part addresses public acceptance of this project. Based on my observation at the April 15th Plan Commission meeting, a majority of the commissioners do not like this project for the following reasons. They did not see any residents that wanted this project. Jan Gibson submitted a petition with more than 300 residents from all 4 wards that oppose this project. The proposed density will not improve the quality of life for anyone who lives in Lake Forest. The land is currently used for employee parking. There are good reasons to keep the Laurel Avenue land as a satellite site for the city. The third part addresses the potential future revenue stream generated by property taxes for the proposed 172 living units. If you believe that property tax revenue is free money, then you should allow all subdivisions of 10 acres to build 172 units because of the future revenue stream they will generate. I happen to believe that property taxes pay for operating costs and that property taxes are not free money. The fourth part is the belief that Laurel Avenue site has to be remediated. The city of Boston wanted to dump their snow in the ocean this year, but the Environmental Protection Agency believes that snow is a hazardous waste because snow contains dirt, salt, sand, highway de-icing chemicals, antifreeze, motor oil, and products from vehicle exhaust. So even if the city of Lake Forest remediates the site this year, wherever the city dumps snow next year will become a new hazardous waste site. The fifth part addresses the issue of giving the old municipal building to the Lake Forest Historical Society. The site that Lake Forest Historical Society just purchased is appraised considerably higher than what the Lake Forest Historical Society paid for the land and buildings. So the Lake Forest Historical Society should be able to flip that property at a profit, considering that the home 2 doors west of the church sold last year for $3.5 million. Point 6, I've read the blighted report for this area. My neighbor has a broken window in his garage for the past 2 years, so I guess his home could be classified as a blighted area. My proposed solution would have the City Council increase the size of the TIF area by amendment to include any new construction in Lake Forest during the next few years to the ordinance that established the TIF area. I would include the new development approved last week by the Plan Commission for the new Whole Foods on Route 60. I would expand the TIF district to include the 7 new homes in the new development on Wesley Road, the 7 new homes in the new development on Green Bay Road, the 16 new homes in the new Oak Knoll Woodlands subdivision in West Lake Forest, and any other new construction in Lake Forest. This would allow the city to be repaid for the property at Laurel Avenue and the remediation costs needed to make that area a park. Finally, if Focus Development does offer the city $50 million for the site, then just sell it to them. But I don't believe that Focus Development will offer the city anywhere near the amount the city has invested in this property. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I appreciate you've been up, you have been before the council several nights, and we appreciate your thoughts and your ideas. We understand your concerns. We're certainly going through the process in front of the Plan Commission relative to this project. I know there was a great deal of discussion, input by literally dozens of residents last week about this project, and some concern, which I know the city is taking to heart as well as the potential developer. One of the things you have mentioned that I think I may have emailed you yesterday and asked you to connect with Ms. Cerniak, the Director of Community Development, is kind of your conclusion. I want to make sure while we've got you here that we can address something, and one of that conclusion is kind of the ability to kind of consolidate TIFs kind of across the community. And Bob, could you or Vic address that? Because I think that is something that the way we understand the TIF ordinance in the state is not something we can do.
Well, that is correct, Mr. Mayor, is that each of these has to be established on their own merits, has to go through the review process that Mr. Lee Brown and Tesca performed on this site. And we can't just sort of do a hodgepodge around the community in one consolidated. But I think rather than belabor that this evening, we'd be happy to sit down with you, Mr. Hammond, Kathy and Elizabeth, myself, and go through your list of questions that you have there and talk them through and provide you some additional background and information that might help fill in some of the blanks that you might have with respect to the project.
And I have read those 9 items as far as qualifying property for TIF, and I believe you can include other areas into that TIF that would fall under some of those items. So
Well, I don't want to argue, but I think the problem is going to be is it has to be contiguous to the current, or each has to be established on its own merits. And so we could expand it, but then it would have to come back to the city council to amend the ordinance and to expand the district and go through that process. But you have them scattered throughout the community, and each one would have to be an independent district.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, moving on. Next item, items for omnibus vote consideration. There are 7 this evening. As we always do, I'll read each of them. If any member of the council would like to take them separately, we can do so. Otherwise, we'll ask for a motion to approve all 7. Number 1, approval of the April 6, 2015 City Council meeting minutes. Number 2, approval of a resolution reallocating 2015 volume cap to the Village of Buffalo Grove, Illinois. Number 3, approval to renew agreement for financial and land parcel management, system software maintenance and licensing for FY 2016. Number 4, award of a contract for Oak Knoll Drive and Lawrence Avenue water main replacement project. Number 5, award of the Lake Forest portion of the 2015 joint sewer lining project contract. Number 6, request funding for additional professional services provided by Strand Associates for the water treatment plant study. And number 7, ratification of an agreement authorizing use of high-speed rail grant funding for the Phase 2 final engineering design of the Telegraph pedestrian underpass project. Any council member wish to take any of those items individually?
I have a question.
Alderman Moore?
On number 4, the water main, I guess this, I'm not sure who would answer the question. But are any parts of this water main related to the expansion of the 16 homes on Oak Knoll? And I'll ask that question first, sir, and then a follow-up.
No, that is not the case. This is south of Old Elm.
Okay.
The new subdivision is going north of Old Elm. This is just a replacement of a very old undersized water main that the city crews have had a lot of main
And I don't
breaks
have a
on.
follow-up question.
Anyone else? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve the omnibus.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please, Biddy.
Alderman Waldeck.
Aye.
Alderman Beidler.
Aye.
Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Pandeleon.
Aye.
Alderman Tack.
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Edelman.
Aye.
Alderman Moreno.
Aye.
8 yea, 0 nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Biddy, very much. Next item on the agenda this evening is ordinances. First is consideration of an ordinance amending section 51.045 of the city code, water wells, as recommended by the Public Works Committee, and this is for final approval, presented by Michael Thomas, Director of Public Works.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. This evening, staff is requesting City Council approval for second and final reading of our water well code amendment. This was presented at our last City Council meeting. Substantially, there are no significant changes. Our city attorney reviewed the code amendment, and the revised versions are included in your packet. Again, this code amendment focuses on allowing water wells for properties that are 5 acres or larger, residential properties that are 5 acres or larger in town, as well as properties that have got historic or are defined as historic properties with larger landscapes. So again, the overall purpose is to try and offset some of the high peak demands that we have throughout the summer, and if we can provide this as an option to some of the residents to assist them to irrigate, it will actually, our hope is to ease some of the demand in the higher demand months from a water plant. So with that, I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Questions of Michael?
I have one. What about historic wells?
Historic wells. We have 14 wells in the city. 10 of them are for irrigation. One is for simply a pond recharge to keep the pond at a level. The other 3 are for duck and fish ponds. Those all fell under the current rules that we have, and they were granted permission. They're inspected on an annual basis to make sure there are no cross connections. So they met the current requirements that we have.
After this became public, I had a resident approach me on a well that is used to recharge a pond, and then the pond is pumped to water the lawn and the gardens. And I don't know, of course, that was depleting the pond on his end of the pond and or a lower pond.
Right.
Is this covered?
It is covered, you know, I went back
Come
and.
from ponds that are filled by wells.
Sure. And that those ponds then provide water to the irrigation systems. Yes, it would be covered. It would be covered. We went back and looked in our files historically. We found information back to the mid-'70s that provided us data on these 14 wells. Is there a chance that there are additional wells in Lake Forest? There is a chance. And when we spoke to a couple of the well companies, they noted that there probably are some wells that we may not have documented. But to answer your question, yes, they would fall under these guidelines.
So can residents, because we're limited on where we can get our water, can residents put a pump into a pond that's filled by a well to water their lawns?
As long as it meets the requirements as far as future wells, as long as it meets the requirements that are within this code amendment, yes.
So the retasking of that water for irrigation would have to be on 5 acres or be an approved historic site?
Correct. So the water wells that we have approved traditionally, all the water is typically pumped into a pond, and from the pond, the water is taken and put into an irrigation system. This also calls for water to be pumped directly into an irrigation system. So I believe both would be acceptable.
Okay.
Any other questions of Michael? If not, I'd ask for a motion to grant final approval of an ordinance amending section 51.045, water wells to permit private wells under certain conditions. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Waldeck.
Aye.
Alderman Beidler.
Aye.
Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Pandeleon.
Aye.
Alderman Tack.
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Nadelman.
Aye.
Alderman Moreno.
Aye.
8 yeas, 0 nay. Motion carries.
Thank you very much, Biddy. Thank you, Michael. Next item on the agenda, new business. Kind of in keeping with some discussions we've had over the last several months, Alderman Moore and others have asked about continuing to be cautious about waiving competitive bidding. So to that end, we're going to have tonight Dan Martin, Superintendent of Public Works, discuss a request for the council to waive the competitive bidding process to purchase LED street light lamps. Dan?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. This evening, staff is requesting City Council to waive the competitive bid process and award the purchase of LED lamps directly from the manufacturer Neptune Light Incorporated. Staff understands the concern with waiving the bid process and feels it's necessary to explain the reasons why it is being recommended tonight. First, as you may recall, last year, the city purchased 612 Neptune LED retrofit lamps from a commercial wholesaler to begin relamping of the city's streetlights. The lamps selected were manufactured by Neptune Light, Incorporated in Lake Bluff, and this was after a in-house pilot program tested lamps from several manufacturers before that. So there was a full testing in-house where we selected various vendors and manufacturers of LED lights, tested them throughout the city, and came up that Neptune was the best solution for the city to move forward with. So in order to keep the street lighting consistent throughout the neighborhood, staff recommends continuing to use the Neptune LED lamps. Doing so will reduce maintenance and inventory costs and maintain a uniform lighting color, which can differ from one manufacturer to another. So what we really want to prevent is that we start a program and then we have another type of LED light lamp that we go ahead and we start putting in, and we get various different kinds of colors and different types of lighting patterns that will start coming about that we noticed when we were doing the pilot program. One of the things that we had to be really concerned with, and I know that that was some of the feedback that we had last year when we came before council as well as Public Works Committee, is the consistency, and that these were going to be very reliable and perform well in all sorts of types of weather and conditions. And I think lighting, the brightness and the color were very important because we didn't want to start retrofitting and then changing the way that the light fixtures look and keep that neighborhood consistently looking the same as we replace them year in and year out. Secondly, to try to avoid having to bid the Neptune lamps amongst other wholesalers or distributors. This year, staff contacted Neptune Light directly and asked that they would sell the lamps factory direct. And quite honestly, to our surprise, they agreed, and they're a local company. They're right in our back door over in Municipal Services, and they want a presence in Lake Forest. They're very much want to work with the city and have agreed to let us purchase them direct from them. Factory direct purchase avoids additional fees and profit margins that if we were to go out and bid these things with wholesalers like Granger and Goodman Electric, Idlewood, they would all be just basically seeing who would going to lower their profit margin the most before they give it to us. By going direct, we were able to go from $97.99 last year and purchase them for $93, which is going to allow us, if approved tonight, to go from $612 last year to $644 this year. So staff is requesting City Council to waive the competitive bid process, as we mentioned, and for the amount of, and award the Neptune LED retrofit lamps in the amount of $59,892. I can take any questions. I didn't get into some of the things that are in the write-up that I can certainly address as far as sustainability and other attributes that Neptune brings. But
What's the energy savings per unit that you get in dollars per year? Do you know?
Don't have that figure right now. We're under a franchise agreement with ComEd, and the other issue that we're running into is not all the lamps come direct. For instance, the rec center, which is part of the franchise agreement, we don't pay electric for, but that's where those lights are being retrofitted. The parking lot lights run from there. Same thing with Municipal Services. We also have some areas that are metered. We also have some non-metered dusk to dawn calculated light fixtures that's in most of our neighborhoods. So it's really difficult, and on top of that, we also get some like the traffic lights and some other type of lighting through that franchise agreement we get at no cost. So we're only charged for part of it. So really that's going to take a much deeper study that we're going to need to go back. But in the simplest terms, most of these lights are 100 watts, and we're replacing them with a 25 watt LED. It's going to be substantially different, kilowatt hours. And once we have the different various pricing and how we're going to have to compute that and all the fees, then we'll be able to come back and give you something that might have to actually get negotiated with ComEd as well.
Other questions for Dan?
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, I have a potential interest in Neptune indirectly, and so I'm publicly disclosing I expect it is underneath 1%, and I will abstain.
Okay, thank you, Alderman.
Yeah, you betcha. I've got something to say. I've been talking about this for a long time, and I'm really happy that there's a request for a no-bid situation. But the other half of my issue is this is exactly the argument for the water plant. It's a great product and a great vendor, and there's one guy that makes them, and we can be consistent. And then the next thing that happens is we don't get filters from them. The other half of the equation is not buying a product that you can only buy from one vendor. Buying a specified product with a specified light range, and not being so critically worried about one part of town separated by a lack of lights from another part of town when the light is respectfully similar and representative. And in this way, when one vendor charges $95 for a light bulb, you can go to another vendor who's charging $25 as LED comes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. But once you specify one product from one manufacturer, I don't have to finish the sentence, you know where I'm going with it. It's the other half of the problem. It's not just getting a bid, but only buying Neptune lights, made coincidentally in the town next to us, I guess, right? That's part of the problem. Even if they are the best light, then we need to get a number 2 light. I mean, we've talked about the water plant over and over again, how we would never make this mistake again. And this is less than $20 million, I get that. But in principle, you really need to have a product that you can buy from multiple manufacturers and have a wide enough specification range where you permit that. I'm almost gone, but.
No, I totally
I won't be
understand.
voting on this probably, but it just seems like like sand slipping through my hands sometimes. So.
Can I ask a question on the heels of that? Where are you in the process? Is it the objective in the long run to have a single light from a single manufacturer for the whole community?
Ideally, for the majority of these lights, we were trying to get one manufacturer just for the consistency, being able to go back. They are very innovative technology. In 2009, we were creating on our benchtop LED lights to put into the MS parking lot lights, for instance, to get the LEED certification. So this is evolving all the time, but we're also looking for things that are stable and as well as UL listed. And some of the things that we were looking at or people were trying to peddle were neither of those. So we also have to be very careful of the fact that it's not like Philips and Sylvania are popping out with these types of products. This is very innovative, and it was part of the green initiative to go forward. Our metal halide lamp and ballast program was doing about $300 a year at $175 for the pair. So that's how we came up with the $60,000 amount for the retrofit. And now we're able to accelerate that, and we'll just continue into that. So
how far along are we into this process of retrofitting the city?
We're entering the second year. What was supposed to be a 5-year will probably be more like a 4-year now. So we will then start getting into the Cobra lights, and yes, we'd like to retrofit. One of the things that we feel good about having Neptune close by and being so responsive with their products is we don't have to go across state lines or across the country to try and get any type of warranty work or whatnot. They've been very responsive if there has been any issues. So
I guess I concur with Alderman Moore's perspective that, it is changing technology to the extent that we get wedded to one product and the technology improves dramatically and we can't take advantage of that or we don't want to take advantage of it. You have different neighborhoods. As long as it's uniform within a neighborhood area, it doesn't have to be uniform across the whole city. That said, volume purchasing usually creates big advantages in these kinds of things. So it seems like we ought to have a backup or a plan B or a supplier number 2 in some areas of town just to get familiar and I also, having run a lot of real estate in my day, I totally get the idea of the uniform light color. I mean, you can even have variations from the same manufacturer of the same bulb for the same spec, and they vary, and they will age differently as well. So there's just, we're talking about second. Whatever you've done, I'll pick a number. You've done 25% of the community. This is for the next 25%. So we're not wedded to these guys yet for 100%. But maybe the last 25%, you want to start experimenting or maybe doing something that's almost as good.
You could certainly do that.
Backup.
We have vendors coming in all the time showing us what's out there and what they're providing and pushing in that direction. And it is evolving very quickly. So that is certainly doable to look at those. And we kind of already do. But right now, what we're concerned about is making sure that we get off on the right foot here and that we're not switching up the colors. And we got a very good product that we know we can move forward with, and it's going to get backed in such a changing environment right now, but is as it evolves, I'm sure there'll be plenty that will be able to match probably what's being manufactured by Neptune. I
Are there
imagine.
rebates available from the state, from utilities, from?
That usually results only if you're replacing the entire fixture, not the lamp. We have a self-ballasted, that's one of the other nice things about Neptune, is some of the other ones that needed what's called a driver, and that's like the ballast. So now you've got more labor and everything trying to go in there, and the costs, it's really not just the bulb. This is literally a bulb. We wire out the metal halide ballast, we screw it in, it can convert to 277, 120, like nothing. It is, and then it's pretty much maintenance free. Right now the metal halide's 5 years. This will go probably 8 to 10. There's some manufacturers saying 12 to 15, and I'm not quite there yet, believing it, but because they haven't been out that long.
Probably a fair amount of snake oil being sold.
Yeah, on that note,
So-
I don't want to miss the congratulations on the initiative to take this lower energy, longer lasting, more economic situation. But like the rationale with only the $35,000 golf cart or whatever that thing's called at the last meeting, the ticket
Oh,
giver
right, the
cart.
Go4. Yeah.
What's it called?
I believe it's the Gopher. Yeah.
You know, the rationale there was it's only a couple $1,000s a year. I think that the point is there's a process, and the process will lead to good decisions. And there's always a reason to sideswipe the process, but they'll never be legitimate. It's always better to have 2 bids or 3 bids. We can't with asphalt anymore, I get that, but, and we can't fabricate them. But please don't let the good feeling of saving energy and saving money and all that be lead to a lack of process, which will eventually lead to replacing a $20 million water plant. That's just want to make.
Point taken. Yeah, I do. We totally understand.
But congratulations on the initiative on this.
Any other comments?
David, you talk a lot about spec and, you know, what the specs are, and I was just looking over this, the stuff that you prepared, Dan, for this report, and I'm just wondering if there's a way that we could pull out, because you're giving us the history, which is great, you're giving us kind of the goals of it, but I'm wondering if there's a way we actually could sort of visually pull out the main specs. So at the top of one of these pages, it's tested performance, reliability, weather durability, product implementation costs, and so on. But it may be that there's language that you all are literally using in your spec that might be helpful to us to get behind your thinking. This doesn't solve the problem. I actually agree with you completely, David, and I think it's a really important point. But there may be a way that you can help us by, you know, trying to help us get into your minds a little bit more to understand this. This doesn't, I still think that competitive bidding, you know, sort of trumps that.
Well, we
But
want to
if
know, are we paying a premium for this bulb? Because we love it.
Well, okay, and I think that's important for us to understand that. So I think, you know, and here's why it's worth, but it is interesting. I mean, I know this technology is changing very rapidly, and it seems like if there are a bunch of other people who make it, that we ought to at least be aware of that. And if you want us to not do a bid, then we need a pretty compelling reason why. And, you know, the fact that we like it and we've already started with it doesn't actually completely persuade me that there's nobody else doing this at all. So I feel like that part of this is at least a communication piece, that you may be able to give us a format. And, you know, I'd be happy to test drive something with you and you know, have you say, is this what you're talking about? And I don't know if this moves the ball down the field at all, but it might. And I mean, I have to be truthful. I think we're going to miss that caution that you have, and more than caution, you were exhorting us.
George said he was going to do it.
Oh, all right, good. Okay, never mind then. Forget this whole thing. George is on it.
Thank you.
It's a real issue.
Carrying the mantle.
Any other questions from Dan? Alderman Adom.
Yeah, when we buy these light bulbs, do we just go down a street and uniformly change all the bulbs? Or do we use them as replacement for when bulbs burn out?
We do both, but right now the lighting program that we're following from the LED was on a 5-zone system, and there's about approximately 300, 400, depending on, some are heavier than others, that are on rotation. And one of the things that we're starting to see right now is we're in zone 5, I believe, and they're starting to fail just because of their useful life. They will just start failing after
LED
about
lights or
no, the metal halides.
Yeah.
So we're following the same program to be able to change out ahead of time before these fail, because metal halides, they lose 30% after the first year of production. So these are already 5 years old. They're getting close, and they're not putting out nearly
This
the
is
light.
the foundation of a $300,000 issue, not a 60. This 60,000 is for one of 5 zones.
No, it will be now of 2 zones because of the purchasing power being able to go with LED and without having to put a
So it's
ballast in.
150% of this is the total bill for Neptune. This is 2 of 5 zones, 60,000, 30,000 a
Would be
zone?
4 zones right now that will be with this purchase, and then we go into the mix match of the Cobra lights.
You
and
buy
a few
2
of the-
zones for 60,000 or 4
Correct.
zones?
2
zones. Okay.
And how many zones have already been retrofitted?
2. We're on
Oh, there's
we're on
one-
the second one from
zone
last
left
year.
after this purchase.
Correct.
So maybe that's the zone that we start experimenting with some other products.
Correct.
Okay, I only got one question, and I've got a bunch of thoughts going through my head. So I asked if you replace them all going down a street so that you have the uniformity of illumination, or if you only replace the burned out ones. The reason I'm asking the question is if you're taking out light bulbs that are working and putting the LEDs up there, are we just chucking the working light bulbs, or are we saving them for replacement purposes on other streets that might still have the metal halide, that you get a call in from a resident that says, hey, there's a street corner light burned out?
Exactly what they're doing. We
Okay,
don't
good.
keep them all, though. We keep the ones that are probably in the best health, if you will, when we bring them down, because they are kind of dirty and pitted and have dark spots in them.
So we're not just discarding all of them?
Correct.
Okay, good.
And
I got it, good. All right, now, I agree with David wholeheartedly about this. And Neptune could be here today, they could be gone tomorrow. And it is so analogous to the water plant situation. Moreover, Neptune, if we knew for sure they're going to be in business for the next 30 years, the science of illumination and technology is constantly changing. So Neptune's light bulb today may throw off a totally different light than Neptune's light bulb 3 years down the road. So I think our goal of trying to uniformly illuminate the town, it's an ideal, but I don't think it's, from a practical standpoint, ever going to be achievable, because things are changing. I walk into Home Depot, I want a 60-watt light bulb. There's 5 different kind of shades of light I can buy: warm, sunlight, nighttime, daytime. I get so confused. I've got to buy one of each and see which one matches what I have, and then return the other 3. So the rationale for doing this is it's commendable, as everybody said, because we're conservation oriented. But I don't think we should put our eggs in one basket. I think it needs to be bid out, and we have an industrial specification as to the kind of light we want, the lumens or whatever they measure it by, and so forth. But I would be opposed to doing this on an ongoing basis. It's got to be multiply bid out.
Well, I think after this first cycle and we get into the 8-year and we start doing it, there's going to be plenty of other Neptunes out there that we wouldn't have to be going with a sole vendor at that point. It's just, we wanted to stay consistent as we get through here, especially because we accelerated it. Instead of doing 300 a year, now we're doing 600 a year. We've just escalated that whole process and taken a 5-year program and really cut it in half. So when this is time to do it again, we won't have to go to Neptune. We won't be linked to them necessarily. We will probably have plenty of other manufacturers at that point to be able to bid and get plenty of opportunity to have more than one unit available that will look pretty much or perform pretty closely, just like you find with an incandescent bulb that you can't tell between a Philips and a Sylvania. If I was to take them and cover the top, they're one of the same. That's not LED at this point, especially for the exterior, high weather durability street light. That's been our finding anyway.
I, for one, think we have beat this to death. I am okay with this. I think it's a one-off issue. It sets no dangerous precedent for the LED or whatever going forward, and I would prefer to move forward with it.
No other comments. I'll ask for a motion to waive the competitive bid process and award the purchase of Neptune LED retrofit lamps to Neptune Light, Inc. in the amount of $59,892. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Waldeck.
Aye.
Alderman Beidler.
Aye.
Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Pandeleon.
Aye.
Alderman Tack.
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Edelman.
Aye.
Alderman Moreno.
Abstain.
6 yeas, 1 abstention, motion carries.
Thank you, Biddy, very much. Final item on the agenda, any other business to come before the council this evening? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Have a good evening. Thank you.
So we came and talked about this water drainage study. Are we supposed to do something? That was just an
That was just
FYI.
something that we did.